Hello, my name is Jonathan Rothschild. I'm a board member of Second Chance Tucson. I want to thank all of you for being here today, taking the time to listen to what should be an exciting and hopefully helpful program. Uh, Second Chance Tucson's focus is to reduce recidivism and help justice-involved individuals successfully reintegrate into our community. We hold community forums, volunteer days, we have job fairs, and try to educate the community to reduce stigma and to assist those who are coming out of the criminal justice system to lead successful lives. We're aware of the challenges that individuals face and try to connect job seekers with employment. Our coalition includes a coalition of nonprofit, faith-based government, law enforcement agency, and employers. We're going to just hop right into our first session. The speakers for our first session are Natividad Cano, who's just come on the screen, and Sandra Preston, who's just come on the screen. They're from the Native Ways program at The Haven. Nati Cano is a licensed independent substance abuse counselor. She's a Mexican native and has been working in substance abuse field since 1989. She's been with The Haven since 2007 and is currently the coordinator and counselor for the Native Ways program. Nati, welcome to our forum. Sandra is a member of the Tohono O'odham Nation. Sandra, did you just hop over there with Nati? Is that what's happened here?
Yes.
Okay. Don't go off script. She has a bachelor's degree in social work from ASU and is in the Advanced Standing Master of Social Work program at ASU. She's in recovery and is passionate about helping people planning to apply what she has learned to her tribal communities. She currently works at the residential behavior facility and is interning at The Haven. Welcome, Nati. Sandra, please let us hear from you.
Thank you so very much. I really appreciate the nice introductions. And before I start with our presentation, I would like to acknowledge that we are on the indigenous lands of the Tohono O'odham Nation and the Pasquayaqui tribe. And I'd like to acknowledge our elders, past and present, and all the people who have been stewards of the lands in southern Arizona. We have 22 tribes in Arizona, so Arizona is a very, very indigenous state. So thank you for this presentation, and I'm very proud to be presenting today on the Native Ways program of The Haven. The Haven has been around for approximately 52 years. For 52 years, we've been providing gender-specific treatment to women with children. Pregnant women come to our facility to seek treatment for substance use disorders. And in 2005, 2006, Victoria Redhawk Steele was a therapist working at The Haven, and she noticed that Native women would come to The Haven, but they would not stay more than 48 hours. So Victoria asked them, why aren't you staying? Why are you going home? And they said, well, we don't find anything that we can relate to, anything that we can identify with. So with the support of the then CEO Margaret Higgins and the board, Victoria was asked to create a program. So she is the founder of the Native Ways program, Victoria Steele. Victoria went on to serve on the Arizona legislature for approximately 10 years, and she's currently running for Justice of the Peace, not the priest, the peace, in Pima County. So she's been a strong supporter as well all this time that I've been at the head of the Native Ways program. So in the Native Ways program, we have a very successful high retention rate and completion rate higher than the general population. So we integrate a lot of Native traditions spiritual beliefs, and we do drumming. We do we learn the songs. We do the talking circle. We have a sweat lodge that we haven't been able to use in the last 2 years because of COVID, but we're in the process of seeing how we can reinitiate that tradition as well. The We have a strong collaboration with other agencies in Pima County, especially Tucson Indian Center. We participate in uh, with the Pascuayaki tribe when they have their Cuaresma, their celebrations, their day of recognition. We cooperate and participate with the Tohono O'odham Nation as well. We have a lot of support in the community where we get involved in different presentations, we get involved in different activities. The religious community also has invited us several times to drum for their services in an effort to a reconciliation because of the what has happened in the past, historical trauma, the children that were taken and they never came back to their families, and we're in the process of we're involved and we're engaged not only in treating substance disorders but also incorporating cultural and traditional beliefs of different tribes in the state. I am very excited that Sandra is now part of the Native Waste program as an intern because she also brings a lot. She adds a lot, and for the women who come to our program, and the Native Waste program is a program within the larger program. It's important for people to see a face that they can relate to, that they can identify with, and see that people can achieve success, that the women can rebuild their lives, that they can, generate a lot of healing for their own families as well. Because once, a woman has gone through the treatment and she joins the recovery movement, and this woman will not reoffend. This person will not be a threat to the community. She will be a community member who is healthy, who can speak in healthier ways, who can behave in healthier ways, and then she can be a role model for her children or other younger generations. So the healing is, all around, all around. We do a lot of what I call cutting edge things at the Haven. We have psychodrama. We have the auricular acupuncture. We do a lot of things with University of Arizona. We're great partners with the University of Arizona, the Native American Research and Training Center, Native American Student Association, and the people who are master gardeners. They come and they help the women learn about gardening, which is very, very healing. It's something about getting your hands dirty with soil that is very healing and very good for the soul. So let's see what else. We do a lot of activities. We celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day. We do a ceremony for our Day of Remembrance, which is called the Orange Shirt Day. The missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls and persons. We do ceremonies that really bring a lot of healing to everyone in the community. The entire Haven community likes to be involved in spiritual activities, ceremonies, and it's not just for the Native Waste program clients, but it's for the entire community that we provide these services, and they love to participate and be part of them. It's a very successful program because recently we were ranked one of the top 10 treatment centers in Arizona. So that Newsweek did a survey, and I believe that we rate really high. We are, up there in comparison with private institutions, private treatment centers. Being a nonprofit, we're right there on top too. Very, active and very successful and very well known in our community, and we have a lot of support from the community as well. Not everyone knows about the Haven, but those who know about the Haven really support and you know they are our friends and our collaborators and we're located in a residential area, and we've been at the same location since 1977, so 45 years in a residential area, and our neighbors are great and they're supportive and they know what we do, and so they protect us too in a way. So um what else can we say? Sandra, are you ready for your part?
Yes.
Okay. I really appreciate this opportunity to feature the Native Ways program. And thank you for allowing me to speak this morning.
Hello. Good morning. My name is Sandra Francisco Preston. I'm from the Tohono Nation tribe, from the village of Kumababi. I am currently working on my master's degree at ASU. I've been interning for the past couple months at the Haven. I'm also involved with AmeriCorps, and AmeriCorps partners with the Haven as well. Since my first day, everybody's been so welcoming. I get to work alongside with Nathi at the Native Ways program. Yeah, since my first day, I walked in, from the clients to the staff, everybody's so welcoming, and it's such a good, warm feeling. I mean, the groups that we have in here, the communication is great. The activities that we're involved in with the community, it's nice to see the women drum. Some of them, it may be the first time, and some of them, they may have lost, I feel like they may have lost their culture. And it's good. It's a good sense to feel like they got their culture back once they come to the Haven. We have both Native Americans and as well as other ethnicities, and many of them they're intrigued by the Native Ways program, and they want to get in. They're always asking, "Oh, how do we sign up?" Because they like the activities that we do, the drumming, like I said, the smudging,
The talking circles.
the talking circles. Yes.
We incorporate White Bison also as well, which is White Bison it takes the 12 steps, the traditional 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, and incorporates Native traditions and Native beliefs. So it enriches a program that has been successful for many, many years to help people, rebuild their lives. So it really enriches to incorporate the traditions and the beliefs of indigenous communities. So it's a very good combination.
Another good thing that we're working on is the grant, the New Dawn
Warrior Woman.
Yes. So we're really excited about that.
Yes. Yes. This is a SAMHSA grant collaboration with the Southwest Institute of Research on Women through the University of Arizona, and we're very excited. It's a 3-year grant that we received, and it will enhance the Native Ways program in many areas. It will also will help Spanish-speaking people from Pima County and the other counties like Santa Cruz County and Cochise County to really get services. I am bilingual, so I am able to communicate well with Spanish-speaking clients, and we are developing a track for bilingual or Spanish-speaking only residents. Very excited.
Yes, we are. All right. I think that's it. Want me to introduce the ladies?
Okay.
So we also have two of our clients who are willing to share their stories. We have Shira Javier. Shira?
It's good to get closer to the, to get closer to the.
Um,
Does it sound better?
I came out of my shell, and now I'm out there. I became a community leader for the program for the peers here. And I do like it. It made me come out of my shell, and I talk to all the peers. I have good relationships with all the peers here. They're really good. Everybody, the ladies that are here. Um, we have the drumming group. We have the relapse prevention, the parent team, the seeking safety, and we did go out for a couple of sessions for the drumming. We went to U of A. We went to one of the churches, and it was nice. It was nice. I did really like it. The drumming for me, it gives me relief from my stress. Because I got kids out there. I have 4 kids that are out there. They're with their dad and their grandma, and they're the ones that are keeping me strong. They're making my day go by because this is who I'm doing it for, myself and for them. I do love my kids, and that's what I'm doing this for. Yeah. But this is a really nice program. I do recommend it for, the ladies, that need it. It's nice. They do, help you out with the bed. You get fed 3 times a day, and it's nice. We have our last meetings are at 7 at night to 8 o'clock. Yeah, from 7:30 in the morning to 7 at night. Yeah. But it is good, the program. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Selena Grace Ordonez. I'm Pima and Tahana Atam. I come from the Hill River Indian Reservation. Um, I got to the Haven on August 23rd, and when I first got here, I always told myself that I don't need to be here, that this isn't for me. But being here for these past 2 months, it's really showed me that I do have issues that I need to work on. I do need things to change about myself. I have to recollect myself every night. Um, the Haven really helps you. It helps you with things that you don't even think that will help you until you actually need something, like in the classes. We have Acudetox or and meditation. The meditation, you sit in a room on recliners and you could just lay back and chill, and um, you get acupuncture in your ears, and it really helps. You get little beads at the end of it to calm you or to energize you, and it's really, it is really good. It helps a lot if you need something to be helped with. It connects to your some points in your body that really needs help, and it could show you if you're dehydrated or something. Another good thing about the Haven is the Native Ways program. When I first came to the Haven, I wasn't connected to my my tribe or my native ways until I got to the Native Ways program. I'm like, what's the word called? I got connected to my higher power, my creator, being in this group. Um, I get to drum. I've never been so close to my native ways, and um, yeah, it helps a lot. It helps you reconnect to your tribe and everything. It really helps, and we get to drum everywhere, and we get people from out from that aren't Native American that come drum with us too, and it's really good. It's really nice to have that community to go to that with us, and we have like safety and relax prevention and family systems and healthy relationships. Those really do help. It helps you a lot, especially when you don't really think about things like that, and you go into those classes and even presentations and everything. It really does help. It really does. Sometimes it makes me emotional because it hits home for me sometimes. We have a native house where some of the girls in the Native Ways program, they build houses, and it's really nice being here. We eat very, very good. We sleep good, and
Someone's looking at.
yeah, we got everything. We got everything we need. It's like a home away from home. And yeah, it's been really good here. I tried, but I'm almost done. I'm almost out of this program, and it's really helped. Thank you.
I was on mute. There you go. There we go. There we go. The beauty of all of this. Okay. First of all, I want to thank Nadi and Sandra for participating today and telling us about the program. And I want to thank Cher and Selena for being willing to, have the courage to come forward and talk about what you're actually experiencing. A couple things. Clearly this is a program that tries to reach people where they are. And I think probably some of this methodologies can apply to all sorts of people in terms of a better understanding. And the Haven, of course, for years has been a wonderful program in our community. Any of you could answer this, but maybe Cher, Selena, you'd be the best. Can you explain kind of the biggest impact to you or the biggest difference for being able to do the Native Ways program as opposed to something that doesn't reach out specifically to Native peoples? How that's made a difference to you?
For me, it made me come out of my shell. Um, I do like the program, coming to all the different classes that we have. Was supposed to, mostly spirituality, emotionally, physically, mentally. Um, it's really nice. I do like it, and just to hear about our ancestors and everything else, and it's a good time. Yeah. And I really do enjoy it. I do enjoy all of it. I do from my grandmas and grandpas. I do know some of the stuff. That what we are our heritage, our Himadak, where we come from. Yeah, and that's what keeps me going. I stick to it. I stick to my Himadak. Yeah.
All right. All right. Well, again, I want to thank all of you for joining us. Hopefully, we've got a lot of people watching today, and hopefully, them finding out about this program, either they can direct people to it or let other people know for certain, or even if some need it themselves. Sounds like a wonderful program. So I want to thank all of you for taking the time and stick with us and watch the rest of the program. I think you'll find it fascinating. So thanks. Appreciate it. Okay. The speakers for our next session are going to be Juan Cortez and Amy de la Garza, and they're going to speak about a program called Acudetox. Chuck Pyle will facilitate the program. There they are on the screen. A little bit about Juan and Amy. Juan Cortez is the Holistic Services Manager at the New York Harm Reduction Educators and Washington Heights Corner Project. He first came to the project in the 1990s as a drug user. Through a combination of harm reduction, acupuncture treatments, and support groups, he's become drug-free. He's now the Holistic Service Manager at the project and is a registered trainer with the National Acupuncture Detoxification Association and holds a degree in massage therapy and several martial arts certifications. His passion is bringing holistic services to the streets to people that may not otherwise be able to access those services. Using his own personal and professional experience, he works with formerly incarcerated military veterans, young injection drug users, using acupuncture and acupressure as an introduction to wellness and harm reduction. Amy De La Garza is a family practice physician who has dedicated a large part of her training and professional practice to the care of patients with substance use disorders. In 2017, she opened the first community-based co-located behavioral health and substance use disorder outpatient clinic. She has completed a fellowship in addiction medicine at the University of Utah and a 2-year training to become an Institute for Functional Medicine certified practitioner. She's a member of the National Acupuncture Detoxification Association, it's called NADA, and has implemented Acudetox into all aspects of her care for patients with behavioral health diagnoses, including substance use disorders. In March of 2022, Utah passed legislation expanding access to training and certification in NADA to mental health workers, physician extenders, and nurses. They successfully completed their first expanded training in Utah in this past July and have been awarded a $50,000 SAMHSA grant to train 100 Acudetox specialists in Utah over the next 2 years. I don't know if our host here, Chuck Pyle, needs an introduction, but Chuck is a former federal magistrate who has taken on this work as his passion, and it really helps to steer our board. So Chuck, I'm going to turn it over to you. Juan, Amy, Dr. De La Garza, thank you for being with us today. And Chuck, let's hear what you got.
All right. Thank you, Jonathan. I'm pleased to be here today with my friends Juan Cortez and Dr. Amy De La Garza. All three of us are passionate about training people to use a simple, safe, and inexpensive treatment to provide relief to people dealing with stress, trauma, and addiction, which these days seems like most of us. Our plan for the presentation is it'll be less like a presentation and more like a conversation with a couple of videos to jazz things up. Dr. De La Garza, I have tremendous respect for what you have accomplished in your medical career, but given the conversational style we are using and the grassroots nature of the technique, is it okay if I call you Amy this morning?
Yep, no problem.
And Mr. Cortez, since you refused to call me Your Honor, I would like to call you Juan, if that's okay.
Yes, Chuck, as long as you don't call me the defendant, we're good.
Juan, later on, we're going to talk about the important history behind this 5 needle point procedure. But for now, could you explain a little bit about the mechanics of the treatment and the points used, so people understand what we're talking about this morning?
You're asking me?
Yes, Juan.
Okay. So NADA acupuncture is basically a 5-point protocol that is used to help reduce stress, reduce anxiety, helps to detoxify the lungs, the liver, and the kidneys. Pretty much it has a relaxing effect on people. It helps to reduce trauma, but it was initially used for substance use back when the Young Lords, the Black Panthers, and Dr. Mutulu Shakur discovered this beautiful gift from a newspaper article they read in the New York Times, and then they started to apply it in the United States for the first time. A bunch of teenagers from the South Bronx giving people acupuncture. It was an amazing thing. But yeah, so it's the use of 5 needles or the use of beads, and it's applied in the ears, and people sit and they feel more relaxed, they feel de-stressed, and they're able to take that moment that they need, because the world and life could be a little bit hectic, especially if you've been stigmatized and told that you're a piece of garbage your whole life. I think that if I explain it in a nutshell, is that it's just the recipe, and the main ingredient is love. The acupuncture needles are an extension of that love.
Well, that's nicely said. So there's a lot of terminology. Maybe I'll run through it real quick, and then Amy, let you talk about one of the aspects of the procedure, the fact that it's a nonverbal procedure. But we may be calling this today Acudetox, the 5 needle protocol, or 5NP. But it's basically all the same thing, just different terminology. And then the people that Amy and Juan trained to do this simple procedure, they end up being called acupuncture detoxification specialists, or ADSs, or sometimes called auricular acutechs. But part of this procedure, with kind of the unusual thing, is it is a nonverbal procedure, right, Amy?
Yep. No words needed other than a brief introduction to the people who are getting it. If they've never had it before, just giving them a brief introduction to the procedure and making sure that they feel comfortable with what I've explained. And then the needles go in, and there's really no talking. It's very energetic. It's very connecting. And it's really nice because it doesn't require any words. Sometimes people there's nothing to say when you're hurting. There's nothing to say when you're really activated. Sometimes there's just nothing to say. And I agree with Juan that just extending myself to people who are hurting or people who are activated or anxious by just putting these needles in, it's just a way for me to connect with them that I wouldn't otherwise have. And so it's really powerful that way.
Hey, so Juan, could you just talk a little bit about how the 5 needle point procedure helped you when you were still an active IV drug user, and how it helps you today as you're helping IV drug users?
Well, particularly, like everybody's experience is a little different, right? So this is particularly my experience. So I was able to incorporate the use of acupuncture when I was in Lincoln Detox as a patient, um, because I really, prior to that, I always believed in martial arts. I always loved martial arts. I was always very interested in the Eastern culture, and also indigenous ways of healing, right? We all have that naturally in us. It's passed down through our ancestors. So I found that the traditional way of addressing substance use wasn't working for me. Like the the medicate them and lock them up theory wasn't working for me. So I had to develop a tool set, and acupuncture was one of the tools that I put into my toolbox, and I would access it twice a day at Lincoln Detox. At the same time, I was volunteering here at Harm Reduction, so it helped me to stay grounded. It helped me to stay focused. It gave me that time that I needed to sit with myself and meditate, and plan my next steps. And that's how it initially helped me. And it initially helped me with the withdrawals, as I was detoxing from both methadone, pills, crack, and heroin. I, it was I was able to ease my withdrawal symptoms, but I was also practicing Tai Chi and Qigong. I was attending support groups. It was just a part of a toolbox. And today, how it helps me today is it keeps me sane. It keeps me sane because uh, life still happens. Just because I'm not using drugs doesn't mean that things don't happen. Life doesn't hit you in the face. And also, working with people with problems all day, and then going home to my own problems. If you don't have a way of practicing self-care, then you'll easily burn out. And so I use it today as a maintenance tool, as a way to stay focused and sane.
That's great. Well, Juan, the New York harm reduction educators have this wonderful video. Let's play that video now for the people watching it.
Well, basically, I was active young IV drug user, and I just happened to come across Nairi because it's a street side service, so they give out syringes in the streets. I like the way I was treated. I was treated pretty with respect. People weren't stigmatizing me, and I learned how to stay safe and how to not share syringes, not share cookers or waters, and that pretty much kept me healthy until like I decided to go to the next level of change in my life. Inside of me, even though I was living and surviving on the streets, I always wanted to help people. I just didn't know exactly how that would pan out until I started doing the harm reduction peer program. It was specific for me because I was going through withdrawals at the same time that I'm trying to help people. And it was kind of funny because here I am feeling horrible and people are coming to me and I'm not focusing so much on how I'm feeling. I'm focusing more on what I can do for them. And that's a foundation that I hold to this day. And I think that's what makes it important. Is part of my life. It's part of my history, and the people that come to me are my people. That's a reflection of who I am. So that's why I do what I do, and that's why we go out to the street and we go out and we engage people right in the belly of the beast is where we call it. And if it wasn't for us coming out here, people wouldn't have access to these services. We're going to reach people that other places are not willing to come out and reach. Qigong and Tai Chi, I actually started practicing that about 11 years ago when I was going through detox from methadone. I learned it, the first few steps I learned from a counselor because I was going through methadone withdrawals, and he taught me some breathing exercises and some movements. And I practiced them until I practiced those particular movements, and I took some classes until I met Sifu. When I met Sifu, I told him, I do acupuncture, I do auricular acupuncture. And he said, really, what did you do? I said, in harm reduction. He was like, we're the ones that started that. I'm one of the young lords. And I was like, it was like I met my hero.
I became a young lord after I came back from Vietnam. So during the time that I was in Vietnam, that's when they took over Lincoln Hospital. Lincoln Hospital at that time in our neighborhood was known as the butcher house. Going to get medical treatment, and they treat you like, you're a low life or some kind of animal, So that's when, got together at that time, and they took over Lincoln Hospital. And they started treating people that, needed help. They called us communists. They called us socialists. They called us everything in the book except for what we were really doing was getting, people's rights, our rights, to be treated like human beings, like everybody else. We just wanted to be treated like humans. That's all.
He's like the granddad of holistics in Nairi. When he comes, everybody's happy. Like he's got a lot of experience. He's been practicing martial arts for over 50 years. And he's got a good heart, and he's about the community. He's a community activist. There's some of the original community activists before Nairi even began. The Young Lords and the Black Panthers were fighting for the rights of people in these communities way before we got here. So that is a privilege to be his friend. Is an honor to be in his presence, and our participants love him for that.
I saw that, they was continuing what we had started. So I decided, to start coming around and volunteering and helping out. At the same time, taking advantage of the services myself. I was also, I'm a Vietnam vet. So Wang was dealing with veterans. And so I said, let me tag along. So it helped me out too.
What we do is we're unique that we combine holistic health with actual harm reduction, right? So holistic health and harm reduction go hand in hand. So people actually come in for clean syringes, but at the same time, once they access their syringes, they'll come to get acupuncture, right? They might want to do a one-on-one qigong session with me. They might just want some information. I could line you up with a group of participants that know every qigong exercise, what organs they're for, and each step by step. And these are active drug users. These are people that go out in a group into the park, and we go out into the community, which the community sees nothing but a bunch of drug users that are no good in the park. So now we're having this connection to the community, and they start asking questions. They start asking questions, not to me, to the participants. We're giving people access to this. We're telling people and we're showing people that you too can have holistic services, you too deserve to take care of yourself. Not just people with money and not just people that don't use drugs. Everybody deserves to live healthy. What Nairi means to me is health. We're about keeping people healthy. We're about education. We're about we're about advocating for drug users, advocating for people who've been stigmatized their whole life, people who society have pointed the finger and said, you're no good. Well, we're about telling people that they are good. And we're about showing the world, showing the community that drug users are just as important as anybody else, and we deserve the same rights as anybody else. And we deserve to live healthy. We deserve to have homes. We deserve to have jobs, So it's just, yeah, that's what Nairi means to me. Nairi means to me uh, the fight against stigma and the fight against injustice.
Wow. So Juan, when I do go to trainings with my wife, this is my favorite video to show. I just think it's an
Thank
incredibly
you.
powerful video. I know you have the good fortune of, still being friends with Sifu and Walter
Yes.
Bosk and some of the people that go right back to the Lincoln Hospital days. And I know you really appreciate that. Amy, I don't think you grew up in the Bronx. I don't know that much about your background, but the history of this protocol, the fact that it's so embedded in a social justice movement, still is important to you as you make it more accessible and available to people. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I first just have to say that video, we were shown that video by Libby Stout and Sarah Burchak in our NADA training, and that video is really what literally has inspired me for everything I've done since. I'm a functional medicine doc, lifestyle medicine doc, and I was like, yes, like Juan just says it perfectly. Like it's not being well, the active pursuit of health for everybody is a right. And we need to figure out how to extend that right to everybody, not just people with money. And I stalked Juan. I called Nairi. I emailed Nairi trying to get in touch with Juan after this video. And then it's so crazy that I'm here. But anyway, I mean, I think we're in a resurgence of, I think we've always been in a social justice type of movement. But I think in the last couple of years, without question, we've seen a resurgence of that, right? And that's just what really spoke to me in the work I did in my fellowship, working with young drug users and formerly incarcerated people and so much intergenerational trauma. And like these people wanted acupuncture in their ears. They wanted to learn about healthy nutrition. They wanted to learn about sleep hygiene. And they wanted to learn about, healthy exercise and things that they could do to make their bodies feel well and not just always talk about stop using drugs, because like maybe people don't feel like stop using drugs right now. And we need to be there for them and show up for them where they are. And this is just the most powerful way I've found to do it, in addition to talking to people about nutrition and sleep and exercise and all of that. So yeah, I'm not from the Bronx. I grew up in a totally white upper middle class community. But that doesn't mean I'm exempt from helping everybody. It probably means it's even more my duty. It's even more my sort of place in the universe to help people that aren't as lucky as I've been.
Well, Juan, I wanted if you could just focus for a minute on that portion of the video to me that really struck me was where you have these active drug users out in the park doing qigong, and the people are coming and asking them what they're doing. A group of people that people would normally avoid. It's
Yes.
just it's really a powerful part of that video. Could you just say a couple more words about that and how this is impacting this modality kind of takes stigma away?
Yeah, sure. I mean, that video was a while back. We actually we expanded that wellness in the park, where we do a lot of indigenous activities like drum circles and smudging, and also tai chi, yoga, everything in the park, which was when I was listening to the beautiful people of the Haven speak, it was like it struck something in my heart. I was like, that's amazing, because that is so effective. It is so effective, and it not only empowers the individual to get in touch with their roots, with their ancestors, but it also connects the community, where there is not a conversation about drug use. There's not a conversation about stigma. The conversation revolves around this beautiful thing that's happening right now, this beautiful healing method. I'm a strong believer that that healing comes in community. I don't see myself as a healer. I just am lucky enough to be part of the healing process. So healing is a community thing. So whether you're using drugs or not, and you're participating in something as beautiful as a drum circle, or something as beautiful as Tai Chi in the park, I mean, that is a non-verbal connection, like Amy was saying. And that's how the healing begins. That's how the healing begins. And there's no pointing of fingers, because we all at that moment are benefiting from the same thing.
Wow. Well, I know we're all impressed with the work that Juan does in what he calls the belly of the beast. But Amy was working in a large residential drug treatment facility during COVID, which is not exactly a Disneyland environment. So let's watch the video of a podcast Amy recorded last spring, just a few weeks after she was successful in getting the new ADS law passed in Utah.
Like you said, there's no magic bullet, because if there was, if you owned the magic bullet, you'd be a billionaire.
I wouldn't have to be a facial plastic surgeon, that's for
No, you
sure.
wouldn't. And what I like about you is that you're considering all alternatives. It's, as you said, addiction is a lifelong, complicated disease, and there is no one answer. And one of the reasons I got to know you is because you did you did an experiment at Odyssey House that I had never thought of before, and it worked. And this is just another alternative, not a drug, but acupuncture. Describe that.
Yeah. So in 2019, Dr. Beth Howell up at the U trained a bunch of us in the NADA protocol. She didn't train us, but she brought in a trainer, Libby Stout, who's a psychiatrist from Colorado. Trained us in the National Acupuncture Detoxification Association protocol, or NADA. It is acupuncture because we use acupuncture needles, but I try to be very sensitive to calling it acupuncture. We call it Acudetox. So
Okay.
it's 5 needles in each ear. And it was developed the historical sort of concept of NADA started back in the 60s and 70s with the Black Panthers and at the Lincoln Hospital in the Bronx, and the Young Lords, Black Panthers and the Young Lords.
Okay.
So actually, Dr. Shakur, Tupac Shakur's stepfather,
Okay.
actually started this movement using Acudetox for people who were withdrawing from methadone, and also from heroin.
Well.
And so he basically set up a peer support training program in the heart of the Bronx. And when the Young Lords took over Lincoln Hospital, they developed basically an outpatient peer support, harm reduction, addiction treatment clinic, which
Okay.
was incredibly forward thinking for that time.
Sure.
And they trained people in recovery and other peer support to develop Acudetox to basically anyone who came in the door. And then fast forward into the 80s. I'm not sure of all the dates, but fast forward into the 80s and 90s, a psychiatrist named Michael Smith basically developed the National Acupuncture Detoxification Association to provide training in this protocol to include in treatment for patients with addiction. And he basically made NADA what it is today, a nonprofit organization who focuses on advocacy and training in the NADA protocol to treat people with substance use disorder, to treat people who have experienced a significant traumatic event. So this was used at Ground Zero for first responders and people in the neighborhoods in New York during 9/11, the aftermath of 9/11. It's been used Hurricane Katrina. It's now being used for frontline healthcare workers, for first responders, because it so beautifully reduces the stress response right in the moment. Right in the moment.
So what did you do at Odyssey?
It was amazing. So Paula Cook started it. She started doing auricular Acudetox in the orientation units at the beginning of COVID. She and another psychiatry resident from the U. And the psychiatry resident quickly became too busy and wasn't able to continue it. And so I was doing my fellowship in addiction medicine up at the U. And Paula said, would you be able to help me? Like, we have all these people to treat. I can't do it by myself. And so for 8 months of my fellowship, I treated people first with Paula in the orientation units, and the response was so amazing that then I went to Lighthouse, to one of the adult houses downtown, and I did about 80 to 100 treatments twice a week for 8 months.
Now, these are people in residential care at Odyssey, dealing with a number of substance use disorders.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. And at the time, well, I don't know if it's still like this now, but at the time it was the heart of COVID, right? So everybody was broken into cohorts, 8 to 10 people spaced throughout the house.
Right.
It was very stressful.
Sure.
And
In a situation that's already stressful enough.
It was just like, it was 10 people packed into a tiny little room all day together doing really difficult work, right?
Sure,
Like, this work is so hard for people. And a lot of irritability, a lot of anxiety, a lot of
What'd you
frustration.
say? No.
Yeah. I mean, it was so intense. Like, my compassion for those humans in that situation was, it was a lot. So I would come in on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I would just go around to each cohort, put needles in. The way the protocol is supposed to be delivered is in a group. I would put everybody's needles in, and then they would listen to calming meditative type music, or actually do a guided meditation. And then I would take all the needles out, and it took me about 4 hours. So I would spend about 8 hours a week doing these treatments, and we collected data. So we had them fill out a survey before their treatment and after their treatment. And we looked at withdrawal symptoms, craving, irritability,
Triggers.
anxiety, and sleep. Did we do? Oh my gosh, Randall, I'm so embarrassed now. I'm forgetting the 5 points. But we basically looked at how did it make them feel? How did they feel before versus how did they feel after?
And
everybody felt better for the most part. There were a few people that didn't like it, but the data that we sort of accumulated, we had 76 people who had done at least 2 treatments. So our N was 76. And, now I remember what it was. So it was withdrawal, craving, irritability, anxiety, and motivation for treatment. So anxiety decreased, irritability decreased, withdrawal decreased, craving decreased, and motivation for treatment increased.
Right.
So we didn't actually collect data on retention because that was just too challenging.
Sure.
But anecdotally, there were so many patients that said to Paula and to myself and to everybody Adam Cohen, everybody that was working with them, this is one of the primary reasons I kept my butt in the seat and stayed. Because I knew Amy was going to show up to do this for me.
We had a guest on last week, Stephen Moore.
Oh, yes.
Who credits that with why he stayed in the program.
Yeah.
and a lot of other people that he stayed in the program with him, saying, because you can walk out of an Odyssey treatment program anytime you want, and the first 30 days are pretty significant, getting used to the rules and everything else, and a lot of people stayed in just because of that.
Yep. Yeah, it was probably the most, I sort of get emotional still when I talk about it, especially when I talk about Stephen. It was probably the most meaningful thing I've done in my professional career yet.
Really?
Yeah, it was really, really meaningful.
You're tearing up.
It was amazing. I mean, when I testified for the Senate for our hearing for our bill a couple of weeks ago, I really thought very hard about what I wanted to say because I only had 1 to 2 minutes to say it.
Yeah.
And as physicians, especially I think people who treat behavioral health and substance use, it can be really challenging sometimes to feel like we're doing anything.
Because you
Right.
see a lot of failure.
There's a
Yeah.
lot of failure. And when you're sitting across the table from someone who's hurting in this way, sometimes there's just nothing to do. Like there's nothing to do but say, I'm sorry, and I empathize with what you're going through. How can I help you? And that doesn't always feel like enough. Like it just doesn't, right? If I sit down with a patient who is really activated, whether they're sad, whether they're irritable, whether they're panicking, whether they're hopeless or helpless, if I say, can I put some acupuncture needles in? How do you feel about that? And most of the time people are so desperate, they say yes, And after they sit for 30 minutes, really without exception, I mean, there are exceptions to every rule, but really without exception, people feel better right there in the moment. And to be able to relieve suffering like that,
Instantly.
right then, and to see that response and to experience that therapeutic connection that I'm able to make with someone like that in the moment is, I've never experienced it as a provider, and I've been practicing medicine in one form or another since I was a med student, right? So for 20 or more years. And so that's what I said at my Senate testimony. I was like, listen, this is a tool in my toolbox that I've never had before. And it works instantly in the moment to relieve suffering. And I don't know what else to say.
Wow. Well, that's a pretty powerful video too, huh, Juan?
Yes, very powerful, and very empowering for me to hear. There's truly love and dedication there, and just the way that it is explained, it's explained as seeing a medical provider explaining it kind of like like brings it all full circle. um because most of the time in medicine, especially these days, the doctor really doesn't even give you eye contact. They're on a computer and they're like looking at the records and stuff like that, and it's not the doctor's fault per se, because they also have like 50 people waiting to be seen at the time. So for someone to acknowledge that this immediate need needs to be addressed, and that the acupuncture needles are the answer at that moment, that is some deep stuff. It's beautiful.
Yeah. We've got 5 minutes left, and I want to leave each of you with a minute to wrap up. But one of the key things at this point now is we've got to get more people trained. We just have to get more people trained. I mean, there is a tsunami of addiction, grief, and loss out in our communities, particularly in this time of COVID. And I know, Amy, you have a grant, and you've got that's going to be taking a little bit of a bite of that part of the problem here.
Yeah.
So talk to me about the importance of training.
We got it's actually $100,000 grant. We got $50,000 over 2 years from SAMHSA that's being distributed through our Utah State Opioid Response funding. And we're actually going to be training with POCA now, People's Organization of Community Acupuncture, rather than NADA. And so the cost for us to train one person to provide 5-needle protocol is about a third of what NADA cost. So, I mean, I'm just like kind of in the middle of putting together my budget, thinking to myself, I can train literally hundreds of people across my state to provide this intervention, mental health care workers, physician extenders, and nurses. And that, like, just the power of that many people being able to connect in this way, not having to prescribe medicines. They don't have to go to med school. That they can provide this within the context of the treatment that they're already providing, whether it's residential or outpatient or in the hospital. And that is just incredibly powerful. So Dr. Beth Howell and I are going to be working to try and figure out how to get this training disseminated and how to train trainers so that we can just get this up and running across our state and into the rural areas and hopefully onto some of the indigenous populations in our state as well. So we're really excited. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
And Juan, you're an experienced trainer. So here in Arizona, we're fortunate where there's no professional pre-qualifications and no site restrictions, but people may feel like, well, I don't think I can do this, even though I've heard that some geriatric federal judge has been trained and is doing it. But could you talk, how difficult is it to learn this technique and start providing services to people?
Well, first of all, I would like to say this was a treatment developed from the people for the people. So it's something that's relatively easy to learn as long as people follow safe precautions, practice safe needle techniques, and are trained well. It's not something that is very difficult. There is a couple of things that people need to be aware of, like staying within their scope of practice and having a referral source. That's important. But the actually placement of the needles themselves, the placement of the beads themselves, is relatively easy to learn. And like in New York, for instance, in Arizona, it's the only qualification is basically getting trained in ADS, right? New York, we do have restrictions, which are limit the availability of people being able to practice this and for their community. So in New York, you could only legally practice the NADA protocol within the confines of a state-sponsored substance use facility harm reduction agency. It has to be attached to substance use. Now, we all know that this beautiful gift does so many things, right? Helps with trauma, helps with stress, helps with general wellness. We're fighting to change the laws in New York to bring down the regulations so that as long as a person is well trained, they're supervised by a licensed acupuncturist, and they could be able to provide the service at any community-based organization, any house of worship, any community setting for the people. And this way, we could get more people trained in the protocol.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what the challenges that we have in New York right now. We're grateful that we're able to do it at all. Some states are not allowed to do the NADA protocol at all. That's unfortunate. I hope, and that's why I love connecting with you, Chuck, and with Amy, and we're gonna somehow make these changes so around the country people will have more access to this.
Yeah, that's right. Well, we're kind of at our time limit, but Amy, maybe you could take a minute to kind of wrap up the whole segment here. And I really appreciate what you and Juan have shared with us today.
Yeah, just thank you so much for having us and letting us talk about our experiences in our respective states and, our respective professions. I think what's so amazing about this particular protocol is that, like, Juan and I could not be more different, like professionally and where we live and, where we grew up and the people that we interface with every day. But the connection that we have is that we are passionately caring for people who are hurting, and we're providing love to them, just like Juan said. I mean, love is the connector, and love is the thing that heals everything, I think. And that's what binds all three of us together. That's what binds all of us who care for hurting populations, whether it's substance use disorder or behavioral health or trauma or incarcerated people. I mean, everybody's hurt. Like, we don't, this happens because of pain and suffering. And if we can connect with people in this way and band together as providers from every walk of life, I think that places us uniquely in a position to be leaders as we go through these very challenging human times,
Thank you. Thank you both so much, Juan and Amy, for your inspiring and informative presentation. Jonathan, I'll turn it back over to you to move on to the next segment. Thank you so much, guys.
Sure, thank you. And thank you, Dr. De La Garza. Thank you, Juan. Thank you, Chuck. They may be in New York City or Utah, but these kind of modalities, these kind of treatments are available everywhere if we can get people to understand that they can be used for these purposes. I think at one time these were considered alternative methods of treatment, but the fact of the matter is now they may be the mainstream treatments that we need. During the break was commenting with Nadi and Sandra, and they have yoga programs and sound healing programs and other meditation, mindfulness programs. And maybe that's a really big part of what we need to help people along. So without further ado, I'm going to like to moderate our final segment of this program. And we always like to highlight success stories. We've seen some today already, but the program we're going to highlight now features the Second Chance Center, which is a local program. And we have with us today a staff member and 2 program graduates. The Second Chance Center is a partnership between the Arizona Department of Economic Security and the Arizona Department of Corrections, Rehabilitation, and Reentry. And our panel today includes 2 staff, 2 program graduates. So we have here today Kenny Creel, Dr. Kenny Creel, who's DES Reentry Coordinator, and Pete Hicks and Kyle Smith, who are both program graduates. So welcome, Kenny, Kyle, Pete. Thanks for being with us. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it looks like you're traveling, Pete. So get 2 things.
Oh, no, I'm at work right now. I'm on my lunch break.
Oh, there you go. Okay. Well, first of all, Kenny, why don't you, if you could, go ahead and briefly describe the Second Chance Center program, kind of the services that provide and some of the highlights of what you did.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, everybody. And thank you, Jonathan, for that introduction. So again, my name is Kenny Curiel. I am the Pima Reentry Coordinator. I actually was birthed from Governor Doug Ducey's initiative to reduce recidivism back in 2017. So I was solely responsible for starting a program as of March of that year in hopes to kind of reduce recidivism. So kind of give you a better idea of what was kind of going on. Recidivism rate was at a high percent, almost 40%. So pretty much 1/3 of every inmate, or actually 1/4 of a 10th, was come back to prison. So we developed a program to help give the tools to the necessary people to say, hey, this is going to help you for success. And we're going to gear them towards that. What made the collaboration great was DOC was on board for it. It wasn't like it was us versus them. They wanted our help in there. So we were very welcomed into the prison. I remember my first few days there, and I'm sure some of the guys who are on here, me shaking their hand was just an odd experience. Not for myself, it's for the clients themselves. They're not accustomed to somebody not in a uniform addressing them by their first name, extending that hand to shake their hand. A lot of them are like, I can't do that. I said, it's okay. You know, I would have the ability to work with these guys for 8 weeks, the last 8 weeks of release, to say, let's put you to some job development readiness class. So for 8 weeks, we went over mock interview, resume building. Soft skills was probably one of our best class to kind of show people what body language gives out to people, how we present our history of our background. Most of our clients don't like it. It feels uncomfortable to explain the background issue that we feel is a barrier. But to actually build that confidence with them in that 8 week, tell them to say it's okay to tell them it. But tell them you're not that person anymore, that you actually outgrew yourself in a sense. So to kind of see these guys start from the very beginning of the program, kind of getting a feel for it to the end of it. And again, Pete will attest to this, so was Kyle. It builds that confidence. And the one thing that we get told a lot is hope. Hope was probably the most profound word we used to hear a lot is, you know what, now you're giving me an idea that I can do this. Because it's easy for anybody to go back to the old ways, go back to how they used to make their money. The old ways is how they just got normalized. But now we give them the tools where now I don't have to go that direction. There are a lot of programs, even for myself, I was not aware of until I actually have this program itself. So again, a lot of great things happen in those 8 weeks. They have full-blown internet access. So a lot of the guys there would actually sit there and apply for a job. An employer would call them and say, hey, when you want to come to work? And we would educate the clients. Hey, I'm currently not available right now. I'll be out in about a week or two. Is a job available? Absolutely. Get a hold of me when you get done. It was okay. And that was that comfort zone they built with us. So not only was DOC happy with the collaboration, but the clients, I apologize, I don't like to use the word inmates often, so I refer to clients. Okay. So just something I've learned along the way. They built the trust that we were here for them and to give them all the resources. And then unfortunately, like everybody else, lo and behold, COVID hit, right? COVID kind of threw a monkey in a wrench. But there was something good that came out of COVID. COVID birthed the virtual program now. So now, because the units that we have for Second Chance program were only at 3 facilities. So we had one in Tucson, one in Phoenix, and then one for the women. That doesn't cover a lot. So when DS started back in 2017, we were only seeing 25% of the released population. So for the ones who don't know, roughly about 1,200 clients, men and women, are released per month. We were only seeing 25 to 28% at the very beginning. With the expansion of our program, because again, it started from just myself in Tucson to now we have almost 30 staff members, plus the now virtual program, DES itself is now at the 45 to 48% rate. So we're now almost at that halfway point. Doesn't mean we're done. Next year, we want to hit 60. The program is expanding, it's getting bigger, it's getting better. And if it wasn't for COVID, we were able to tackle the yards that were not allowed to join. So the Second Chance program was only for low-level custody units, level 2s and maybe some 3s. The virtual program, now I'm talking to level 4 units, the ones who know prison really well, the ones who need the help more than anybody else. So it's no longer, well, he get it, but I can't. It's for everybody. The last cohort is a 4-week program. We saw over 108 clients at one session. Great graduation yesterday. It was just one of those things where, again, hope was widely spread out. So that is kind of one of the things that we're really focused on is continue to extend our services full wraparound. Even though the client gets released, we are also at the parole offices. So we're not done with you. We're still going to help you and extend those parole services after. So, hey, Kenny, I got kicked out of a halfway house. I need some help. We are still here to help them. We want to make sure we emphasize, don't take notes and answer, reach out to us. No such thing as a silly question. We're here to help you with that. Some of the stats that I like to bring up to it is the job placements, because that's probably one of the barriers that most of our clients have with this as current date. For the last month, again, because of COVID broke things down, I want to say for the last 6 months, DSSF has had a targeted date as far as how many placements we've had per month. We've gone all the Second Chance centers, and it's really about the 100 mark. And for the last 4 to 5 months, we've been continuously hitting that mark, meaning out of all the clients released in our program, almost half of them go to work right away. We have some who got many offers when they're in prison, which is the best part of it, right? but we also know that doesn't happen for everybody. But the thing about it is we have a strong collaboration. We couldn't exist if it wasn't for our partnership with Department of Corrections. And I can tell you this for sure. I sure as hell could not exist if it wasn't for the guys in orange, my clients, who actually said, you know what, Kenny, I'm in it. I don't ever want to come back. So when I was asked to find some people of success, people came to mind. I got Mr. Kyle Smith here. I got Mr. Pete Hicks. These are some guys who are going to attest to you that if you program right and you give it 100%, I mean, a full 100%, you know what? You can be successful. There's no excuse for failure unless you just, how bad do you want it? And that's kind of the essence of our program is how bad do you want it? It's easy to quit. A lot of us tend to do that, but to make it a habit is your choice. So I'm going to go ahead, Pastor, because I want to hear from my two staff, my two guys, Pete and Mr. Smith. Real quick introduction to before Mr. Pete Hicks. Mr. Hicks was my RSS. He was my first mentor, meaning a lot of the classes we created, me and Pete did it together. We had this forum up in Winslow, and Pete was asked to participate. And me and him, we bunked together. We're in the same hotel together, and you know what? We did it together. We had a great presentation. We showed everybody what reentry is gearing towards and what's really about. They're not all scary bad people. They're just people who make honest mistakes. And then from there, we bring on Kyle Smith, who I think my first visit with Mr. Smith, we hit it off real well. I knew for some reason, if I remember right, Mr. Smith, I told you, why are you here? You don't belong here. I can tell you right now, I don't see you as I see other people. And I think that's what the program is to bring that human nature. So I won't take up too much of your time. So I'll pass it back to Jonathan. If you want to go ahead and introduce Pete and then Kyle, have at it. Thank you for having me, by the way.
Sure. Thanks, Kenny. And real quick, just Pete or Kyle, whoever wants to go first, just a little bit, real briefly, about your personal story, kind of, how you originally met Kenny and what that circumstance was. And then kind of specifically, what did this program do? What kind of things did you get that you were either ready for or they made you ready for that's gotten you to where you are now as a success? So either Pete or Kyle, either one.
All right, I'll go. Hey, Kyle, what's up, buddy? I haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah.
Well, for me, a little bit about myself. I'm 38 years old. I have 17 years incarcerated, so I am a repeat offender. So I kept coming out and going back and coming out and going back. And it's because I became a product of my environment from a very young age. I was raised around motorcycle clubs and stuff like that. So I fell into their ways very young. And as a result, I've had a tattered life, right? In and out, in and out, in and out. I didn't think anything was ever going to change. But the last time I went to prison, it saved my life. Because that's when I met Kenny. When that program first came on the yard is when I started to do a change within myself. Because I found myself in my cell looking at a picture on the wall that said rock bottom. And at that point, I knew that my life's not going to be anywhere different if I don't change something right now. So I started to make these changes. Then the program, the Second Chance program, came onto the yard. I introduced myself to Kenny and Miss Trejo at that time, who was the CO3 for the program. And I approached him and told him I would like to teach programs as a part of this program because I feel that I could better meet them at that level than somebody else because I've been there. I'm at that level. I know that, all that stuff. So I think I could better meet them there. And then I got the RSS training and all that stuff. And it just developed into this life that I have today that I never dreamed to imagine. I have a good job. I just got married. I just purchased a home. Only been out of prison for 2 years, and my life is just going good. And I just thank everybody for a part of this reentry, the Second Chance program, and for the hope, like Kenny said. Because today they send you out with the hope you didn't have before. But again, it's all about your mindset. You got to be willing to open up to a new, different set of thinking to have any change take place. So with that, Kyle, you're up, buddy.
Thank you. Good to see you too, Pete. Thank you, Kenny and Jonathan. So my name's Kyle Smith, and I had been in prison twice. Both of them were for DUI, felony DUIs. And I had also been grown up with the partying thing and addicted to drugs. And I got very heavily into my drug addiction, and I was homeless for a couple years back in 2008 to 2010. So it was honestly a blessing for me in a way to end up going to prison. I know that sounds strange, to end up going to prison. It gave me the wake up call that I needed to make some changes in my life. I knew that wasn't the real Kyle, that I was, off partying and doing drugs and drinking. So I've been clean from drugs for, I believe it's been about 12, almost 13 years, but I did keep drinking, and that's what got me in some serious trouble. And I've been sober from that for 7 years now. Matter of fact, 7 years in 1 week, it'll be 7 years. So I just wanted to say thank you actually to Kenny and to Pete. I remember, so when my class was there, I became a mentor when I was in the Second Chance program, a mentor in my class that was there at the time. But Pete was one of the gentlemen who was like helped Kenny and the CO3, Miss Trejo, and helped run the whole program. So I got to see him and work with him every day. And so one of the big things that I think the Second Chance program did is immediately I noticed from the very first day, they were saying things to you that you normally don't say to inmates in prison, and things to get their main thing was to get you out of that prison mindset and the prison mentality where you think you have some credentials for doing bad things, and you're the worse you do, the better you look in the prison yards and things. So they're and nobody wants to be that kind of person. But when you're in that prison system and the politics and everything that goes along with it, they make you think that that's the way to go. So they were extremely instrumental in helping to break everybody's the way they thought mentally about the whole prison system. And like Kenny had said, like, hey, you can do this. You can be a regular citizen. You don't have to get out and get back in trouble. Like Pete was saying, he had been a repeat offender. That's what I had done. I've been in twice. And it was for 4 years the second time. And so the main thing was to break that prison mentality, to make sure you have options rather than to go back to your old ways, your old friends. They had given you all the tools that you needed with finding you a job. Before you left there, most of the guys there, they had jobs that they were going to get out and go to when they were released. And that's a huge motivating factor. And like I said, I had made up my mind when I got in trouble and I was in there sitting in prison. I'm like, what am I doing here? This isn't me. This isn't what I want. So I made up my mind that I wasn't going to go back. And so I was going to do everything that I could to not go back. I was always been in construction my whole life. I'll kind of round this up. I won't talk too long. I've started up a company. I'm a general contractor now. I got licensed for residential. I have a residential license and a commercial license for construction, general contractor. I have built up a small company. I have 10 employees, and I just spoke with a bunch of guys that had submitted applications. As a matter of fact, yesterday, so I'll probably be hiring 2 more. And then I have myself, my 2 sons work with me, and I have an office manager. So it's going well. We're very busy. And like I said, I kind of thank God that I went through what I went through to make the changes that I've made, because otherwise I might have still been out running the streets and doing what I wasn't meant to do. And I really think the Second Chance program was a huge and very instrumental in helping me to realize that there is something else out there. When we went into the Second Chance program in the office every day, we programmed every day. But when you went into that office, you didn't feel like you were even in prison, because you were talking to these people. Like he said, you're shaking their hands. You're talking to them like normal human beings talk. You're able to use the telephone, and they're helping you to find job, and you're on the phone with interviewing over the phone. So you just felt like you were an actual citizen again. So it was very, very helpful to me.
Yeah, we only have a couple minutes left, but there, in Second Chance Tucson, one of the things we really believe in, Kyle, you just hit on it, and Pete, you did too, in the program, it sounds like, is if you can get folks jobs when they're coming out, it's something that they can find meaning in, along with everything else you got to do, which you got to do a lot of that from within, right? You can do great. And we have with us today a whole number of employers who are watching this. If both of you could say one thing to an employer about how they could benefit from giving someone a second chance, what would it be? Kyle or Pete?
I would say to see through the stigma, because there's a stigma that's placed on us that it's just there, you know, it's like a black cloud that always follows us around everywhere. But if you see through that stigma and you see the human being that is just there trying to make a better life for themselves and they just need that chance, you never know what you could get, man. You might find the diamond in the rough.
Very good. Kyle, what about you?
That was very great. I would say the same thing. I'm being an employer myself. I actually have 3 guys that are on my company that were in prison and have prison pass, and they're the best employees. You have to look at the person, like Pete was saying. A lot of times when guys have been through difficulties and struggles, they're the most motivated to make the changes and become good people and become good employees and different things. So they are going to be the best people. They're there every single day. They work very hard. They're making the changes, and they're always going to be positive changes. So it's definitely worthwhile to look into hiring some people who've been, given. Everybody deserves a second chance. So it's definitely worthwhile. And like I said, I have 3 guys now, the best employees. So I would say that it's definitely a worthwhile shot.
Kyle, as long as you're on, why don't you give your company a plug? What's the name of your construction?
Okay, so my company is called Supreme Creations Building and Remodeling. And we, like I said, we have a residential license and a commercial license. So we do anything with your home or anything with your building to make it more beautiful, change it to the ways you want it. So thank you for that. I appreciate that.
There you go.
And Kenny does call me, and he's kind of always kept, since I've been out, we've kept in touch, and he's sent me a few guys to give them a chance. And so he's been really good about staying in touch with his old clients.
And Dr. De La Garza just sent me a note, says, wish you lived here, Kyle. My house needs work. But
Hey, we'll travel.
Okay, there you go. Kenny, I think the state of Arizona owes you a big thanks for what you've done. Pete, Kyle, great stories. It is really important that the 2 of you continue to let other people know, because
Yes.
there's some of that, again, having to have been there and listening to you first. So again, I want to thank all 3 of you. Second Chance Tucson wants to thank all 3 of you for being with us today and giving inspiration to everybody who's on this call. So really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, you got it, Pete. Thanks. Get back to work on time now, man.
Oh man, I'm on the clock.
All right.
If there's anything that I can do, Kenny or Jonathan, to help out with any other of these other things, please let me know. I enjoyed it, and I will be happy to help.
Yeah, we'll be in touch. All
Okay.
right.
I'm always available.
Perfect, man.
Good
All
to
right,
see you,
thanks,
Pete.
guys.
All right, you too, buddy.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Kenny. All right, we're going to close up now. Look, we all have a role to play in reducing stigma and creating an environment that encourages success. Reducing recidivism is a critical community goal. Everyone agrees on that. And Tucson has the kind of people who can make that goal achievable. How can you help? Second Chance Tucson, our organization, is a nonprofit. If you were inspired by any of the stories you heard today, please consider donating to Second Chance Tucson. I see that we've got a scroll there. As we continue to work with justice-involved individuals for successful reintegration back into the community through our education efforts, our job development placement programs, and promoting these alternative methods of getting people right so they can do what they need to do. It's www.secondchancetucson.org, right there on the screen. Again, want to thank everyone for attending, taking a little bit out of their lunch hour. Hopefully it was a great program for you all, and we hope to see you again soon. So thank you very much. Really appreciate it, and keep up the good work, everybody.